Welcome back to Souhan Unfiltered at SouhanUnfiltered.com. I am Jim Souhan. This is my podcast with my podcast partner, Michael Russo, by my side for the first time in a long time. We are at the local in downtown Minneapolis, right off Nicollet Mall. We're giving away stuff. First 4 people to come in and show us that you've retweeted something about this show, you can win either a wild, a wild claw? Kind of it's the Wild's version of a big foam number 1 finger, only it's a claw with some beads and a beer
bucket. It's like a bunch of goodies.
That kind of stuff. I also have a Ryder Cup, Glen Eagle Ryder Cup sweater, really nice one, retails $80 I will give away. I have a Minnesota United scarf, really cool scarf. And I have a Masters media guide. There's a big glossy book, beautiful pictures from the Masters that I got while at the Masters last week. Giving away lots of stuff. Going forward, and there's Isaac Whitty, by the way, our first, I won't call him a fan. I'll call him a fan. Our first fan, Isaac Whitty, who works here, is an internationally renowned comic who will be making us laugh at some point. But isn't that the worst? If you're a comedian, people ask you, hey, say something funny. That's got to be the worst. It'd be like walking up to Russo and saying, hey, write me a lead real quick.
I couldn't do that.
But Isaac Whitty's here. He might ask a couple questions on air later. Sean Bernard's here. Josh Petzel, the general manager of the local, might also pop on with us later. As always with Mr. Russo, we will take Twitter questions later on. But really, show up. Show us a retweet. You might win one of the prizes. And going forward, when we're at one of the Cara pubs, that is the Liffey, the local, or Kieran's Irish Pub, we'll be giving away, I'll rephrase, I will be buying you a pint of Guinness if you show up. For how many, Sean? First 50. First 50 people.
50
The first 50 individuals who show up will get 1 pint of Guinness on me. That is an offer as cheap as I am that has never been made to anybody ever before.
Very impressive.
This is the longest I've ever gone into a podcast with Michael Russo without Michael Russo taking over the show completely. I do want to thank my sponsors before we really get rolling here. Again, Cara Pubs, the Liffey, the local, Kieran's Irish Pub, Guinness USA. Again, Guinness will be giving away a lot of pints in my name going forward. Minnesota Eye Consultants, check them out at mneye.com. We've done shows with people from their fine organization before. You can find those in my previous podcasts. Are we mentioning the DraftKings stuff tonight, Sean? Or is that for other broadcasts? You can jump on and do that at some point? Yeah. We'll be telling you about DraftKings also coming up. But right now, it is time to find out how many times Michael Russo spilled Starbucks all over himself in the past week.
First of all, how do I win the 2015 Masters media?
You know what? You got a shot tonight.
That is incredible.
You do really good work tonight. Yeah. I'll give it to you.
That's an incredible media guide.
It is. Yeah. Well, the amazing thing, we'll get to hockey soon enough, but I've covered about 7 Masters now. And listen, it's not exactly an organization.
I knew you were coming.
We knew you were coming. Good job.
I just tweeted him, like, where are you? He's asking questions on Twitter. He works across the street.
That's
Ben Feldman is
that's
what I'm
how
talking about.
Interactive we are. We tweet individual people to tell them they better stick and show up. So, but Michael, the Masters, listen, I've written about it. It's a racist, sexist organization in the past. There's no way around it. But
they have a hell of a media guide.
But those people know how to put on they're billionaires who don't want to make a profit with this organization, with this tournament. They want it to be the greatest tournament ever, and guess what? It is year after year, and this media guide is a good example of that. All right, so how many times you spilled Starbucks on yourself?
God. Yeah,
it's hard to keep
track. I can't remember. No real Starbucks huge problems, though, in the last little while, but I did get a free Starbucks yesterday. I made a
just
Starbucks.
By being you?
No, I went to the St. Paul one, and I went for Rachel Blount and our colleague from the Pioneer Press. I made the Starbucks run, and so I ordered like a grande Pike Place, and they gave me a tall, and of course I had a conniption fit. I'm like,
not you.
You think that I would order a small coffee? No, I didn't say that. But then they gave me, I said I ordered a grande, and they gave me the grande, but told me to keep the tall. And honestly, it was the biggest win of my life. Anytime you can go to Starbucks and get a free coffee, it's a good day. So I couldn't sleep last night, shockingly enough, because of that.
You know what I picture when I picture you coming back from Starbucks? I picture you like one of those pack mules where they have to balance, the 50 pounds on the left with the 50 pounds on the right. I see you with 2 buckets of coffee, and they have to be balanced, so you just tip over.
Chad Graff said to me when I got back, he goes, I can't imagine you walking with 4 coffees. That had to be hard not to pull your phone out. I'm like, what are you talking about? I tweeted a picture of it. I was texting. I was on the phone with Glenn Krevy, our editor. I could balance 4 coffees with my left hand and still work the phone on the right. I'm a pro.
You are a pro, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the hockey, and then we're going to have Josh hop on and tell us about what's happening around the local here also.
Josh Petzel, he's big in the Dyna hockey.
He's big everywhere. Yeah. Let's start here. What are the Wild's chances?
I think they're I think it's a coin flip series. I really do. I will say that it was an I know that it's stupid to probably sit there and agonize over predictions, but I spent way too long actually doing my predictions today. And as Chip Scoggins, who witnessed the entire experience, could attest, I backspaced that thing up about 10 different times. I basically went from having the Wild in the Cup Finals to having them lose in the first round. And that's really what I believe of this series. I think, and that's what's so tough about this series, is I really think the winner of this series could really go at the minimum to the conference finals and maybe the Stanley Cup Finals. And but at the end of the day here, I just think it is it's the least desirable matchup for the Wild. I think it's going to be a hell of a series. But at the end, I don't know. I wound up going against them.
Well, that's not an illogical pick. And first of all, people get all wound up about who a sports writer picks.
Yeah.
First of all, you got to pick somebody.
Yeah.
And you have to base it on some form of logic. And here's the thing. None of us ever actually none of us believes we know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just some people ask you to make a pick, so you make a stupid pick.
Yeah, and you just don't know what's going to happen in a series. You don't know who gets hurt. You don't know which goalie caves. I mean, last year, let's be honest. I mean, if Tyson Barrie doesn't have his knee blown up by Matt Cook, the Wild probably lose that series. I mean, that changed the
MVP of that series.
That changed the entire complexion. And this is stuff that you don't know when you go in your pick. So who knows what happens? But at the end of the day, I think the home ice here is going to be huge for the Blues. I will say what made me really agonize about this pick is I really think the Wild can go down there and split. I think they better go down there and split. And then if they split, if the Wild go back to playing the way that you'd think that they could play at home, I think that they could easily go back to St. Louis up 3-1 in the series, but I just don't think it works out that exact way. And all of a sudden, if you give home ice back to St. Louis, I think then they're behind the 8 ball a bit. So I just look at the depth of both teams, and I just think that in the long run, the Blues are the deeper team. I mean, David Backes, 30 goal scorers on their third line. Kevin Shattenkirk, and Olympians on their third defense pair. I mean, one big reason why the Wild's third line has been so successful here the last month and a half of the season, Vanek, Coyle, and whoever's on that line, usually Fontaine, it's going to be Niederreiter in this series, is because you can get them out there in mismatches against third D pairs, just mediocre defensemen. Well, those don't exist on the Blues. They got the deepest blue line in the NHL, maybe, probably comparable to the Rangers, but different type of blue line. And I think that is going to wind up being hurt the Wild in a bit. I just think that if they wind up, if you just do the positions in this series, I think other than goaltending, the Blues probably have the edge in almost everything. There's a reason why the Blues were top 5 in basically every single category there is. And that's why it's just a shame the Wild couldn't get Nashville in the first round or even Anaheim in the first round.
Ken Hitchcock is one of my favorite hockey coaches. I love the guy. I think he's really sharp. He has a really tough decision to make.
Yeah.
What's he going to do with goalie?
I don't know. Originally, I thought it was 100% going to be Jake Allen, but I think now he's going back and thinking Brian Elliott. I think he wants to go with the veteran. Allen was great down the stretch, gave up 4 goals in his last 4 games. I think Allen's the tougher goalie. Maybe
tougher how?
Tougher. I just think that he's got more, upside in a series. I think he's, I just look at him as being the more intimidating of the 2 goalies. Brian Elliott to me just looks like a guy that wouldn't scare me if I was the Wild. I think his 6-0 record going into the Wild game a couple games ago, he had like a 9-11 save percentage, which is average. He doesn't scare me. I don't know what he's going to do here. Maybe in Ken Hitchcock's mind, and he is diabolical. Maybe in his mind is, eventually I'm going to want to go to Allen and not Elliott. Mm-hmm. So maybe start with Elliott and then go to Allen when inevitably the Wild win that first game, rather than maybe vice versa. I don't know.
We are at the local, again, going forward, not tonight, but going forward, we're going to be giving away Guinness. To rephrase, I will be buying a Guinness for the first 50 people who show up, which is a remarkable thing. I thank Guinness USA and the Cara Irish Pubs for that. Josh, what else you got going on here?
Well, thanks for having me here, guys. I appreciate.
We'll let you in the building. Really nice.
Actually, I'm working, so I guess maybe you guys should thank me. But no, just kidding. Honestly, great partnership coming up with Guinness. Moving forward, everyone gets a free pint. Come down here, first 50 people, and retweet that you're here. And Jim's buying you a pint. I don't know how you can possibly lose.
A sports writer buying somebody else a beer, that just doesn't happen in nature.
That does not happen, and I tell you, Mike, I don't know. Are you working for the St. Louis Blues now with this?
Here we go. The fan reaction.
There,
stab you in the back.
I think maybe I need to insert a little homerism here and
Petzel, the ultimate homer, the guy who quit Twitter because he was so negative on the Wild a couple years ago.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you right now, I'm calling it Wild in 7.
Do you know that he literally quit social media? What was the big reason? We quoted you. Not only you rip it on me because of my. We quoted you on the front page of the Star Tribune.
That's
basically ripping on the Wild.
That's true. Actually, I did give up on the NHL for a short time, but being the addict that I am, it calls you back. And obviously, it's a great sport, my favorite sport. But again, I think every year we hear about the big bad Blues coming to town, and what have they done every year that they've been the big bad Blues?
Choked.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think the history. I think that cloud hangs over them, and the Wild.
So that's what I'm doing I'm doing the reverse jinx. I'm just trying to ratchet up the pressure for them. So to just here, even the Star Tribune picked you.
No matter what happens, Russo will take credit for it. That's
no question. Either way, I'm going to say at the end of the series,
going to say he's right.
If the Wild win, I'm going to be like, God, I had them winning. I just, I'll still claim that I got it right no matter what happens. Petzel, by the way, and I had a funny little Twitter back and forth about a couple weeks ago. I retweeted somebody that basically was ripping on the fact that when they call up our links, it counts against the 10 free things. So Petzel writes back to this person and tells them a trick on how to open up the link without counting as you can.
Thank you, Josh.
So then I wrote back to Petzel. I said, you know what? Next time I come to Guinness, I think I'm just gonna. And next time I come to the local, I'm just gonna run out with a
same thing. I mean, people think they can get our stories for free.
That's an accurate analogy.
It is.
One's breaking the law, and one is just exploiting a loophole. So,
but to me, most ways you can break the law are exploiting loopholes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting bogged down here.
Fair enough.
Do you got any promotions, any events you want to talk about, Josh?
Well, the best thing, right, obviously, Twins are back in town. I know we're talking about hockey here, but we've got beautiful weather. You had season home opener yesterday, so nice little buzz around downtown right now. And obviously, our sister pub, Kieran's, being right across the street from the stadium is a great opportunity. So, again, get a chance to come downtown, visit Nicollet Mall. There's going to be a lot of construction this summer, so we hope to see you before that all starts to happen and really get out and enjoy the beautiful Minnesota weather.
Man, your patio is already kicking.
It is. It's the machine that you hope never stops, quite honestly. And again, great spot to sit there and just people watch and get a lot of the activity and the buzz of the area.
Michael, give me a matchup other than goalie that you think would be key for this series.
Other than goalie, I mean, I just think shutting down Tarasenko is one big matchup, and I'll be interested to see how the Wild do it. I think on the road it's going to have to be by committee. I think at home, my guess is that they throw Eric Holla back in the lineup and try to get through to this guy and say, here is your responsibility, like they did with Nathan McKinnon last year, and he did a fabulous job on home ice. That is one they've got to shut him down. He's actually the reason, I will say, Josh, that I was agonizing back and forth today, because I watched that game. I was there in St. Louis the other day when the Wild played great for 36 minutes. And all of a sudden, Tarasenko just comes out of nowhere and just kills him, and he's just such a pure goal scorer. And the Wild do such an awesome job of keeping guys to the outside, but when he skates to the middle of that slot with the puck on his stick, I don't even know how anybody stops it. He's Ovechkin-like from the other side. So I think Tarasenko is the key to the series, figuring out a way to shut him down, because I think the Wild can play with this team and the other guys. But that line, that's their second line. Laterra was great against the Wild the other night, scored 2 goals, and Steen comes back to the lineup. So just gives them a whole different kind of prolific dimension than just being the big bad St. Louis Blues.
I've covered a number of Wild playoff seasons, and in the past you would say, okay, Gabourik's got to have a big series for them to win, and usually he didn't. Or you said Koivu's got to be big. The last year I thought Parise had to be big. This feels different. This feels more like a team with depth that might get scoring from unexpected places. I don't think it's accurate this year to say the star, Parise's, got to score X number of goals for them to win.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I wrote a little bit about that tomorrow. I think the Wild, that coiled Niederreiter line is going to be very important for this team. I think it's going to be a big boys series, and they've got to play big. They were good in last year's postseason, both of them. Got their feet wet. Now the Wild want more. Koivu's got to score, too. He did have the second most points in the first round last year, but then he really dried up again against Chicago. They really need that line to come through. This is why they got Chris Stewart. I think Zucker really adds a big-time threat to that line, and I just hope that it, for the Wild's sake, that it really opens up and gets Koivu and Stewart some production, because there are times where those two have looked really good, and then there are times where they weren't. And but you're right. I don't think. That's been, to me, the amazing thing about this Wild team in the second half of the season is that they've been so balanced. It has not. This is usually just a one-line team, and let's be honest. If you think about it, how long did it take Mike Yeo to basically separate Mikko Koivu and Zach Parise?
Yeah,
it took him a year and a half, right? And here we are. There wasn't really one point in the season where those two were, line mates. It was pretty much, once Mikhail Granlund got healthy, he was there.
Right, absolutely. I've done, 62 podcasts at this point. I've done a bunch with you. I've done a bunch that were interviews that were taped that we later aired. But going forward, when we do it in a public place, we want to make it a more interactive experience. We want to include people a little bit more. So let's start that right now. Mr. Whitty, do you have any questions?
Tell us a joke.
Come on up and just grab a mic. And again, Isaac Whitty, a comedian. Do you prefer comic or comedian?
Comic or comedian, I don't care.
Okay, you're a comic and comedian who recently was in Fort Myers performing at above the tilted kilt?
Above the tilted kilt.
Which
I
you weren't wearing a kilt though.
You spent your whole life trying to get below the kilt, and I
specialize in performing above places where women are scantily clad.
There are a lot of ways I go with that, and I'm not going to go anywhere with that. Do you have a question for Michael?
See, I'm not a hockey guy. I'm a baseball guy. I have a baseball question.
Okay, ask me a baseball question.
All right.
And I'll tell Michael he's wrong.
Okay. Spring training.
Yes.
I'll run it's an amazing experience. I've never done that before. You get to see things you don't normally get to see.
True.
You get to stand above the bullpen and actually hear. Okay, remember the day Alex Meyer had the horrible outing?
Yes.
I was at that game.
Actually, you have to be more specific.
What's that? Yeah. I was at the game where he had the meltdown, and then it was came on the paper the next day. I can't get my head together. I can't do the basics right. Okay. He came back to the bullpen after having, and you could tell he was a head case at the time. And the way that Eddie Guardado dealt with the situation was what happened. And it was in a really gruff, mean. How much truth is there to that? You got to treat pitchers with kid gloves. And do you think that maybe Eddie Guardado doesn't have that? Niceness maybe that you need with pitchers? I don't know.
That's going to be fascinating. That's actually a really good question, because Rick Anderson's approach and Dick Such's approach. And Dick Such, got ripped a lot, but he also won 2 championships. Rick Anderson got ripped a lot. He also had 9-10 good years where I thought he got more out of the pitching staff than he should have.
Right.
And their approach was, you got to make the pitcher comfortable. You got to be a psychologist. You have to be a friend. You have to be a confidant.
You're right.
Eddie Guardado, because of who he is and the way he succeeded, his attitude is, don't be a wuss. That's basically his line to his pitchers. Don't be a wuss. Throw the ball over the plate. Right. Take your chances. Don't walk the ballpark. Don't be a wuss. And I think what you're going to have is Eddie being tough on guys and Neil Allen being more the back massager.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work, but
Okay.
I think that's the idea.
Good cop, bad cop type of
Good
thing.
cop, bad cop is exactly what it's
Because
going
it
to be.
totally seemed to me like Meyer was already super down on himself, and the way that Eddie, and I love your interview with Eddie Gordato, by the way. You guys had a really good chemistry, but like I don't know, it just makes me wonder, like, did he suddenly make a bad situation worse?
He might have, but
I don't know.
But having covered Eddie since 1993, I think, Eddie's philosophy is, and it's kind of like TK's philosophy. If you're not tough enough to make it, then you're not tough enough to make
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
His philosophy is, I'm not going to make it worse. If you can't handle me yelling at you, then you weren't tough enough to make it anyway.
All right.
That's the deal.
Did you see the Twins tweeted today a thing, and they said, to relive opening day?
Oh, no!
You gotta, actually, it'd be kind of funny to go and read the mentions. The mentions are unbelievable. The mentions are like, eat shit. It's just, you gotta read it. It is like, it is the most...
That's the amazing thing about sports marketing is, every sports team hires a marketing team or a marketing person. And they think they're just going to be so clever, and fans just kick their asses if they don't win games. That's all people care about is whether you win or not. Marketing in sports is winning the stupid game. That's all it is.
True.
Another question, Mr. Whitty?
Okay, I have second question.
Or a joke? Or a story? What is your favorite joke of all time? You've got to have a favorite.
My favorite joke of all Steve Martin's my favorite comedian of all time. And my favorite Steve Martin joke of all time would be it's a very obscure Steve Martin joke. I think everyone needs to find what they really want in life, and I think I finally found what I want. I got some hostages. They're all really nice people. They're all tied to the top of a flagpole, and I'm not going to release them until I get my 3 demands. Getaway car, $1 million in cash, and I want the letter M abolished from the English language. See, you got to throw one really crazy one in there in case you get caught. Then you can claim insanity. Getaway car.
I don't know if he's my
Simple bait and switch, but I really like that joke.
I'm a Stephen Wright guy because
I like Stephen Wright.
The deadpan one-liner always kills me.
Yeah, I was a huge Stephen Wright fan as a kid.
Absolutely.
That was the first live show I ever saw in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Stephen Wright or Steve Martin?
Stephen Wright.
Remember Emo Phillips?
Oh, yeah, I worked with Emo Phillips.
Yeah.
Emo Phillips, when I
funny.
first worked with him, I let it be known that my parents were in the ministry, and like I was really raised heavily in that culture, and he very much, the first time I worked with him, wanted me to believe in evolution. Which now I do, but it was like early in my comedy. All he would talk about in the green room was evolution. Have you ever read Robert Dawkins? I was like, I really think you're... No, it was all...
What a great impersonation.
That's awesome. All right, Mr. Whitty, give us your Twitter handle so people can follow you.
Isaac Whitty, all one word, ISAACWITTY.
Awesome. Yeah. Ben, can we get you up here for a question for Russo? Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate it, man.
Ben, tell us a joke.
I don't have any good jokes.
Give us a good Stephen Wright impersonation. That's what we need. Now, ask Russo a question so I can stop.
Well, I tweeted this in earlier, and I'm trying to... Talking all the playoffs, I'm trying to stay distracted a little bit, but Jason Zucker, I tweeted in, I said... as we think about re-signing him next year, like with the injury concern and everything, what is a realistic term and value of a contract that it's going to take to lock him up?
I think the way he's playing right now, he's got to go get a Nino Niederreiter type deal. I don't know if you go get 5-6 years yet, but I would sign him to that type of contract in a heartbeat now. I mean, he's a very important player to this team. Yeah. I think he has a chance to be, and Chuck Fletcher says that. He wrote a huge Jason Zucker story in tomorrow's paper, and he says it. He's got a chance to be a heck of a hockey player, and I think obviously we got to see how he is in this playoffs. I don't think that you have to necessarily re-sign him this offseason. I think he's the type of group too you could wait on, but if they want, it depends. I mean, I don't know if they're going to want to go 5 or 6 years like they did with Coyle and Brodin, but I think that he, definitely warrants a 3-year extension. And that 3-year extension would put him at 4 years out. I think that's worth it.
Yeah.
In terms of money, I mean, I mean, again, it depends how much they value him, what they think he's going to be. If you're going to give him a Coyle-type contract, it would have to be a $4 million deal. But if you're going to sign him to a type of Nino deal, it could be 2.7, 2.8, whatever. Spurgeon, Nino's contract is Spurgeon's deal. Maybe that you go that route, and he'd be willing to do that for 3 years, and then you try to hit a home run. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, this is a really good story, what we've seen with this guy this year. I mean,
what he was on pace for.
One of the parts of the story is he's got a tattoo on him that says "In Pursuit of Perfection," and his whole thing is that he wants to be the perfect hockey player, and he knows he's never going to be that. But I think that's one reason his drive to be great is one reason why he realized, as negative as it must have been at the time going back and forth between Iowa, that he better embrace being a two-way player, because you can't play in this league unless you are just beyond gifted. And we're even seeing with Ovechkin right now. We're seeing a guy that now he's getting the respect that he deserves because he's totally, absolutely, 100% bought into the defensive style that Barry Trotz wants to bring. It's helped the team, and he's still got his 55 goals or whatever it was. So, I mean, I think that, if you're Jason Zucker, you see that, and to me, you want to make sure that you are defensively responsible, because that's the only way you're going to play in the National Hockey League.
So, how much credit should Trotz get for that?
I think he deserves it all. I mean, they've had a revolving door, a carousel of coaches the last 3-4 years that weren't able to get through this guy, and to me, this was just a masterful job by an outstanding hockey coach.
You got another one, Ben, or are you done?
That's it.
Ben dropped the mic and walked away. But if you have one more.
Well, I had one more thing. I had my head down over there. Rousseau just tweeted a picture.
I know, I chirped him on Twitter.
But I
like it.
I mean, here he comes out here and he's not paying attention to the podcast. He's just sitting there.
He was listening raptly.
I showed up and I said the one thing I expect is some positivity, and I get here and Rousseau's talking about I went back and forth, but while they're done in the first round, it's game over. So I'm on my phone over there looking up all the, which you haven't talked about yet, the penalty kill statistics for Stanley Cup finalists.
Deep now.
And I'm trying to pull up a couple articles for you, but it's pretty astonishing. I think the number of finalists in the last 10 years that were in the top 4 in penalty kill and the champions, it's some interesting numbers. So
yeah, I mean the Blues could kill a penalty too, though.
Yeah.
But as Petzel says, I should just go work for them. You're right. I mean, I'd much rather have if the Wild's penalty kill was awful going into the series, I'd be a lot more concerned than if the power play was outstanding. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. And what I mean by that is the same article that you could probably find is that the last 5, 6, 7 Stanley Cup champions had pretty mediocre to abysmal power plays, but the one common trait is their penalty kill is outstanding. And that is the most important thing in the playoffs, is to kill these penalties, because there's not a lot of them, and then outplay your team's even strength. And these are two very good teams in all facets, and that's why I think it's going to be a very even, tight checking, very difficult series.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it, man. And thanks for coming out. Sir, we don't know you. Do you have any questions? You want to come up and ask a question?
You come to 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, come on up. He's got that mic right there. Okay. Introduce yourself and ask one of us a question.
My name is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
We've met actually a couple times on airplanes and other places. But
so you're a stalker.
One of my questions, I'm a Russo stalker.
Join the club.
Not only have we met on airplanes, but we were in one of the most traumatic experiences you could ever be together on an airplane.
But by the way, thank you for drinking a Guinness too.
I was essentially holding your hand on an airplane once. We thought we were going to crash in Montreal. It was honestly a harrowing experience.
It was scary. Right? It was one of those ones where they missed the landing 5 times, and we circled and circled. And
was it a weather thing?
Yeah, it was beyond wind. We were 500 feet off the ground, and the pilot had no control, and he basically, it was awful. And then basically when we landed, he essentially told us that we had to land or we were going to have to abort, that we would not have made another attempt because they were out of fuel. We had tried so many times. It was not a fun time. It was one of those 30, 50-seat regional jets, right?
Yeah, it was a real small plane.
So then when I saw you about a month ago on a plane behind me, I'm like, oh, my God, this is going to be bad. So, where were we flying from there?
That was on the way back from Edmonton.
Okay.
Edmonton.
Yeah. So. That flight went well.
Yeah.
So,
by the way,
So I don't have a playoff-related question. It's sort of playoff-related. How committed to the NHL do you think is to this current playoff format?
I don't know. I don't like it. And I think this is one thing. I don't think they'll go to the 3-point system, but I do think this is something that the GMs are a little concerned about. You know, it really makes, if you really wanted to have these divisional formats where you had, you made sure that these teams built rivalries, you'd play them more in the regular season. I mean, the Wild and the Blues played 4 times this year. You know, so why are you so intent on having divisional playoff format if, when the reason is to build these insane divisional rivalries, and yet, you're playing the least amount of times against the, inside your division ever. So I think that's one thing that they're going to look at, and I just don't think it's fair. I mean, the Wild, should not be playing the Blues right now, essentially, with the amount of points that they had. And by the way, in the 3-point system, the Wild would finish 3rd in the conference, too. I mean, that's another thing. But I think GMs are concerned about it, and I think they'll bring it up. I think it is here for the next couple of years until at least realignment, and so we'll see what happens after that.
That's what I was thinking with expansion.
Yeah, with expansion.
Then there'll be an even number of teams in both conferences.
Yeah.
Would they make the
well,
switch then?
the problem is, and I said realignment, I meant expansion. The problem is I don't think in 2016 there's going to be 32 teams in the league. My guess is that they're going to go odd number for a while, and the Wild actually will get screwed again because I bet Vegas is in their division. Originally that you're not, but you're going to have, let's put it this way, the Pacific will probably have one less team than the Wild do for a little bit until they figure out what's going on with Seattle. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. So,
well, thank you.
Patrick, thanks for coming out, man. Appreciate it. And we will be giving you one of these prizes later when we figure all that stuff out. I want to thank the Local for having us, Guinness for sponsoring us, Minnesota Eye Consultants for sponsoring us, also the Liffey and Kieran's. I want to thank Michael Russo, of course, and I want to remind you of the sponsorship going for Guinness at all future, well, Sean, you explain it. At all future events at Cara Pubs. Guinness, I am going to buy you a Guinness if you're one of the first 50 people to show up, correct?
That's exactly right. So what's cool is that coming up starting next week, which will be at Kieran's next Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
The first 50 people that come in and that either tweet or check in, and they include SouhanUnfiltered.com, with that, essentially just share the show. And they do that, and they just show their bartender or server. We're actually going to give them a ticket that they get to redeem for a free Guinness. So, starting next week, but the guys that are here today, I'll get you a Guinness.
You're going to be grandfathered in. We're going to take care of you.
You guys are leaders. You're outliers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. Plus, Patrick's come to like 3 or 4 of these shows.
Yeah, and so has Ben.
Yeah,
and Isaac has been stuck at some of our shows.
I know. That's why we finally got the adapter to fix the sound. We're big time now.
It's good when you do a podcast and people can hear you. We learned that.
It was just awkward. It was like a fishbowl type of thing.
Well, people walk in and look at us and go, I can't hear them. And then they go sit in the corner and listen on the phone, which, there's a little bit of emotional detachment there that I wasn't comfortable with.
Well, Jim usually likes to sing some Irish songs, and that's why we didn't give him the microphone.
Irish? All right, tell us about DraftKings, and then I got a question about St. Louis for Michael.
Okay, so DraftKings is a new sponsor of SouhanUnfiltered.com. You can go to DraftKings, and they have some great fantasy baseball things going on right now. They do daily prizes, weekly prizes. I think they're sponsoring the free world, but make sure and check them out. The best way to do that is to go to any tweets or Facebook mentions that we have and click through from there. And the reason why you do that is to give us credit from the show, so you understand that we're helping support DraftKings. They're helping support us. That's how advertising works. I apologize.
No, don't have to apologize. It's the free market. Yeah, I'll have another Guinness. Thank you very much.
So we're excited. One last thing about Guinness is that they're going to do a grand prize giveaway where they're going to give away either a giant Guinness mirror, which would look great in my bathroom.
Those look really good when you're drunk.
They do. Well, except for you got to see yourself in the reflection.
But you don't know that you're seeing yourself.
It's a couple.
That's the awesome thing.
Look, I'm twins. And then the other thing we're deciding between two things. The other would be a really cool Guinness neon. So for those of us that have been to Dublin, it's a beautiful thing. So
I've been to Dublin many times and to the Guinness factory.
You bastards! I've never been to Dublin.
Oh my God, it's awesome.
There's a Souhan's Souhan's Garage near Dublin, and I've never been to it, and I need to rectify that in the next year or two because I'm getting old. I'm going to die soon.
Should go to Dublin this summer.
Next summer. I'm going to Cabo this summer.
You can do 2
Next
trips.
summer. Next summer, Next summer, we will book a Guinness trip for the two of us. We'll go to the show over there.
And you never leave a man behind. That's all I'm saying. What about me? Never leave a man behind. I've been to Ireland 3 times, and you got to get to West Ireland too. But back to hockey.
Sing a little Streets with No Name though.
No.
All right, we have a newcomer, sir. Do you have any questions for Mike? You want to come up and grab the mic? You don't have to, but you are welcome to if you'd like to. Introduce yourself and ask Michael a question.
Are you a Target employee too?
I might be.
It's a symbiotic relationship. People work at Target and then they drink away their Target blues at the local.
It is true. It is a quick walk, but a very nice one over here today.
I tweeted him. He asked a question. I said, "Where are you?" He was here in like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like he jumped out of his building.
So what's your name and what's your question?
Chuck Anderson, we're huge fan. Russo, follow the Wild,
thanks.
but love getting your input on everything. Coming up with the game on Thursday with Cook looking potentially 50-50, or I'm not sure what
I think
percentage.
probably, yeah.
If he doesn't, who do you think draws in place? I know they talked about a few options there.
Yeah, I think Ryan Carter for game 1. He was on that line today, and I think the reason why Cook was drawing in was for that physicality. And so I think they're going to give Carter that opportunity. And this is probably a kind of what have you done for us type move, because in a lot of ways this was Mike Yo's way of maybe getting Sean Bergenheim in. He's somebody that has playoff experience and produced in the playoffs and is somewhat physical, and maybe he could have filled that role, but Carter's going to get in there, and my gut says that coming home that they're going to throw Holla in there. I think that they still want there's value to this guy. He's especially if you come in and he's pissed off and motivated. I think that would be huge for them to get him in for game 3. But my guess is because of that role, and Mike Yo basically said that today, is that this is a role type thing. And that's why it's him over, say, Schrader or Holla. The other thing is on the road, I think they're worried about how physical it's going to get, and I just think from a compete standpoint that they just, they're not comfortable with Holla and Schrader in that type of environment, at least right now. That's just kind of what I'm gathering from behind the scenes. So, any other questions?
No, that was the big one, obviously. I'm a Gopher fan, too, a huge Holla fan. Love watching him in playoffs last year. Been tough this year sometimes, but love to see him get a chance.
And I don't think to me, he could be still a very important player, and I think they've, this is tough on him. You see it. I mean, he is just, you can just see he's miserable about this. Yeah. I witnessed it. Kind of one of the big reasons why I guessed, quote unquote, on my blog in Chicago that Holla was going to be scratched that night for Zucker was because I kind of witnessed the conversation, and I just saw his face as he walked away from Yo. It was very clear to me he wasn't playing that night, and I know how much he wants to play and how prideful of a guy he is, and I think that having him come in game 3 motivated could be quite the coup for this team, and maybe hopefully they're not down 2-0 or even 1-1 at that point, but it could be quite the person to throw in there.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
And stick around, and we'll give you one of the gifts.
Guinness.
I went to high school in St. Louis.
There's a joke about this one here.
Well, let's hear it.
So Jackie's a friend of mine.
Hi, Jackie.
And when I kind of, I quit. I wasn't drinking for a while because it's so bad.
You mean for a matter of hours?
Yeah. So Jackie, basically convinced me that vodka soda was the. This is so embarrassing. The vodka soda was the lowest carb drink, but I wanted to be a little sweet, so I asked her to put some sweet and low in it. So she just brought me a vodka soda with an orange peel and some sweet and low.
I guarantee it's completely healthy.
Yeah. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jackie. We need to support Michael Russo in all facets. So I went to high school for 3 years in St. Louis. Yeah. I used to go down to Kiel Auditorium to watch the Blues and to see bands like Rush because I was basically in. I could have been an extra in Wayne's World. I had the mullet. I liked the heavy rock, all that stuff. I had a guitar that I couldn't play. So I know what it was like to go to St. Louis Blues games back then. What's it like today? Is it a great home ice advantage? Is it a great crowd?
Yeah. I don't think it's like any. It's not like Chicago. It's not like Winnipeg. But they are passionate fans. My guess is that there's going to be a lot of Wild fans there. I really do. I couldn't believe the amount of tickets you could buy on Ticketmaster yesterday. I tweeted it out to Wild fans because I genuinely feel terrible for Wild fans right now. They cannot get in the door at XL Energy Center. It's like impossible.
Right.
The Wild have never had this issue before, but with all these mini packs they sell now, part of your deal if you buy an 11-game pack is that you also get priority if there's playoff tickets. And man, they had a lot of 11 gamers and the mini pack people that swallowed up tickets. So right now they might not put any tickets available to the quote unquote general public. And if it is, it's going to be like hundreds.
Wow.
It's going to be when the St. Louis Blues release their tickets and say we're not using them, you get those. And so it's going to be hopefully Wild fans flock down there. I think it's only an 8-hour drive. I'd never do it, but.
And you know what? I know from covering all kinds of sports down there, it's not. Well, I don't know what it's like at this point. I know with advance notice, it's not the most expensive ticket in the world.
Yeah.
It is. It used to be like a 12-hour drive because you used to have to wind through Iowa through a bunch of small towns, 2-lane roads. Now it's all highway. You can get there in about 8 hours or 6 hours if you drive like me.
Yeah. Jackie, by the way, I've matured. I don't use the sweetener anymore. So
he's growing up right before our very eyes.
Yeah. It's an interesting town, St. Louis.
It's a horseshit town.
Yeah.
It's a really backward, racist town. I live there. There are some good aspects. There's the hill section, which is really good Italian. But it is, Isaac, join in, man.
I just wanted to add something. Yeah, St. Louis is the most drinkingest city in the nation.
Yeah, beer,
it's not
beer
uncommon.
is their water.
It's not uncommon at a comedy show that I performed at on a show-by-show basis to see audience members falling down on the way out of the showroom.
That's because they think the first 6 beers don't count.
Right.
In St. Louis, it's like your job on a daily basis to support the Budweiser factory by drinking 6 beers, and then the next 6 is what you get drunk on.
I would say St. Louis, then Houston, Texas. But St. Louis is like head and shoulders above any place I've been. Yeah.
And listen, anytime we generalize, we err to a certain degree. There are a lot of good people in St. Louis. There are a lot of good industries in St. Louis. But what I found living in St. Louis, and then I went to the University of Missouri, so I was around St. Louis some more. One of the more racist cities I've been around, one of the more depressing cities I've been around, one of the worst downtowns I've been around. If you go to St. Louis and then you come to Minneapolis, you feel like you've gone to heaven.
Right. Yeah, and you have a recent example of the racism.
And that's very. Let me put it this way: when that story broke, the Ferguson story broke, it did not surprise me that it happened in that section of Missouri. Yeah, it absolutely did not.
I thought was interesting about that whole story is that they rarely did. I don't think I've ever heard them say. They never referred to it as St. Louis. It was always
Ferguson. Yes.
Ferguson, which Ferguson is what 10 minutes from St. Louis.
It's St. Louis. It's basically the airport.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
You're right. It's like they're
making like
the outskirts. Yeah.
It really would be like if something like that happened here, and they just kept saying Bloomington.
Right.
Bloomington. They never said Minneapolis. It's almost like a calculated move on the media's part. I don't know.
And it's not even Bloomington, and we're talking like South Minneapolis.
It's
close. It is. Yeah. It's crazy.
One other, and I'll spin off the nasty stuff I'm saying about St. Louis for one other positive aspect of St. Louis. I don't think Minnesota Wild fans would know this. High school hockey in St. Louis is really good.
Yeah, Paul Stastny.
Yeah.
This was probably the most.
Appreciate it, man.
This was most tolerable trip that we just had there. I actually found a good restaurant for the first time in my life in St. Louis.
What is it?
Found a good bar. It was called Copia. Really good. Incredible wine garden in the back, and it's right next to this awesome cigar bar called Stanley's. And the street, Washington Avenue, is awesome. Great bars, great restaurants, but it's just the Wild beat writer didn't want me. The Blues beat writer didn't want me walking back to the hotel from the arena.
No, it's a tough.
And it's just he wanted, and I refused because it's like it was an afternoon game, and you're at the arena all day, and I just figured it was probably the only exercise I was getting was walking back there after the game, and it's a mile walk, and there were times I was just like, this is not good. I'm just dragging a laptop in the middle of downtown now. There are just some really just bad areas down there of just I don't know. It's just not a cool place.
It is not. It absolutely isn't. All right, let's go to our ever-popular Twitter questions for Michael Russo segment. We appreciate everybody coming live and asking questions live to Michael Russo's face. Now let's have questions from behind your back. Mr. Feldman, who's sitting right over there tweeting at us, 8 of the last 14 Stanley Cup finalists were in the top 4 in penalty kill percentage. Russo, get your mind right. Your response.
He's
right. Yell at him. He's right there.
He's right.
Okay. That was. I expected a fight. I'm a little disappointed.
What? Positivity. Yeah, it's positive.
Mike Burgoyne, who makes the biggest impact for the Wild this series?
I assume he doesn't want me to just say Parisi.
You can.
God, that's a good question. Who makes the biggest impact this series? I have no clue. Who do you think, Josh?
Appreciate it, man.
Josh, who do you think makes the biggest impact for the Wild this series? It better be Duke.
Double D, without a doubt. He made the biggest impact for the second half of the season, so you got to lean on him for the series.
Yeah, you can't pick the goalie. It's like picking the starting pitcher in a game is the most important player. It's obvious. I'm going with Dumba.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Dumba scores 5 goals in this series.
That's a really good pick.
If I can't go goalie, I go Granlund.
I'm gonna go. I think Granlund might run for the hills before Game 1 even starts. I'll go Coyle.
Okay.
There you go. I think it's a big man series. I think Nino and Coyle are going to have to be big for the Wild this series.
Well, that fits with my theory, which is Coyle in his career will be a better playoff player than a regular season player.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that.
Josh, thank you. That's Josh Petzel, General Manager of The Local. We appreciate all the support. We'll be talking to you soon. Oh, you want to do that now or do it after the show? We'll do it right at the end of the show. We're not at the end of the show, though. Michael's answering a question. Sean Bernard micromanaging me. Go ahead, Michael. Answer the question.
What was the question?
I forgot to. How about this one?
Coyle.
Are the Wild going to try to work Zucker extension in the summer? This is from Jason Pion, who's always tweeting at us. We appreciate it. His future AAV has to be a big piece of the future cap puzzle.
Yeah, I think that's something that they'll need to look at. I mean, again, as I've said, a lot is that Dubnyk's priority number 1. Then priority number 2 is buying out Backstrom or trading him. They would love to trade him because then you could just retain less salary than the cap hit. And then they've got to decide on what they're going to do with Matt Cook if they trade him, try to free up some money, and then deal with Chris Stewart. My guess still right now is that Chris Stewart's not re-signed, but we'll see. I mean, it's going to.
I like the way Stewart plays.
Yeah, I mean, when he wants to play, he's great. When he wants to play. Thank you for
putting a point on that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. And then they're going to have to deal with guys like Granlund. I mean, Granlund's priority number 1 on the RFA front before they start working out extensions on Zucker. You still have another year before you have to deal with that, and even then you have rights. So I don't think, while the theory is right that they got to figure out what his AAV is going forward. To me, that's of all the laundry list of things that he's going to have to look at this summer. I think that's probably the least. Spurgeon's next before even Zucker, in my opinion. Spurgeon's a year from unrestricted free agency. That to me is a concern more than Zucker.
Ross Brunfeld, why Cook over Bergenheim if that is indeed the decision?
I think status. I think Stanley Cup, 103 playoff games, been here, signed again for next year. This is one guy that's not going to be back to one guy that they have potentially still a future with. I mean, that's just the way things work sometimes, especially for such a. I mean, it's not a. Let's be honest. That's not a decision that's going to make or break the series for them. So they're going to go with the guy that is the veteran, that's won the cup, that is going to be here potentially next year, that's been here longer than 15 games.
I don't think it's a tough call.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Even though again, with Cook not playing, maybe you look at Bergenheim more now. But I got to say. Bergenheim might be a playoff producer, and his numbers do show that. But I mean, he has shown me nothing.
No, I've not been impressed by. I've been impressed by Stewart.
I mean, to me, this is not. I would rather Carter in there that knows the system, is a grit, will fight if he needs to, stand up for teammates, will kill a penalty. Hopefully, not take many penalties because he has had that tendency since he's been back from the injury. But But I'd rather Carter in there than Bergenheim.
Mark R., we've kind of gone over this, but I think we can get more specific. I don't think the Blues elevate their game in the postseason. You agree, or has it just been goaltending?
Well, I mean, we'll see this year. Last year they were banged up going into the playoffs. I was never a Ryan Miller fan. But if all of a sudden the Wild go there and win Game 1, I think that's going to be the story going into Game 2. Everybody's going to be talking about them maybe choking again. And so I think the Wild's got to embrace that and take advantage of that doubt. They were all talking about it today and yesterday, the Blues, and how they have something to prove because of they've blown 2-0 series leads in each of the last 2 playoffs to get bounced in the first round. So that's something I think the Wild can keep, and take advantage of if they steal a game down there.
From intentional offsides, and this is a question near and dear to my heart.
I'm guessing that Twitter account originated because I always joke that that's my favorite kind of play, call in hockey. Every time there's an intentional offsides.
Is this year's close regular season finish the final nail in the coffin for any hope for ending the 3-point game?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. I don't think there was ever a time where they were going to look to change it, but I think that this is the one year where it looks like it actually, if you had a 3-point game, there would have been a major impact in the NHL because the Wild had the second most regulation overtime wins in the conference, and this would have put them in a position where they could have been third in the conference. But for the most part, when you do the math on these, there's not a huge difference in the standings. But look, the reason why this exists is to make everybody think they have a chance to be in it. So I don't think the league is really looking to change it at all.
Bryant H.
As much as it sucks.
It's stupid. Bryant H. with a very good question. What do you think is the greatest concern for the Minnesota Wild? I feel this is him saying we can't allow them to shoot on the rush. #Tarasenko.
That's the thing. I mean, they've got to be disciplined with their system, be strong on the walls too, and get pucks deep. This team is one of the best teams in the league in the neutral zone. If the Wild are going to try to skate through there constantly, if they don't beat that trap, it's going to be turnover city, and they're going to come the other way. And it's not just Tarasenko that could kill you. It's Jaden Shorts. It's TJ Oshie, as we saw last year on the beginning of the end for Danny Heatley in Minnesota when he turned the puck over there on the last minute of the third period, in the first period, and the first minute of the second period. Oshie could kill you on the rush. This is a really good team, and so the Wild have to be smart, and if it means chipping and chasing, fans are going to have to deal with that.
This from Will Tomlinson, who listens from the UK.
Nice.
He said, let's see, which prospects do you see with the big club next season? Grayovac or Kiernan, maybe. Podcast, always a great listen. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you for listening all the way in my favorite country. Second favorite country, excuse me. Don't throw me out of here. Maybe Canada would be in there, too. So third favorite country. Isn't it amazing how I always hedge?
What about America, you son of a bitch?
Yeah, I know. No, that was why I originally corrected myself.
Does America take the top 10?
They're top 10.
Top 10. That's all you want.
Yeah. What was the question? Kiernan, no. Grayovac, yes. I think that they would like to have Grayovac. I don't think they want him in a fourth line role. So a lot will have to do if they maybe bring back a Brodziak or something like that. But I know they have a huge amount of respect for Grayovac, but they don't want to ruin him. They don't want him to be a fourth line guy. So I mean, if he's going to play 6 minutes a night and not power play, maybe he starts in the minors, plays a half year here and there, and comes up. Olofsson's somebody I would have said originally, but he missed the entire year basically with a shoulder injury. So my guess is that Grayovac is probably the only of the prospects.
How do you think? Dubnyk was brilliant for about 3 solid months. Have you seen any blips, any regression, or has he been as sharp?
I don't think blips or regression. I would say that he's probably been more mortal lately, where he gives up some goals, and still most of the time you beat him, it's not clean. It's deflections, it's plays off the rush, very rarely a bad goal. But he, a lot of people have said, this is his playoff debut. We're not going to know how he handles the pressure. But, he's so cool, calm, and collected. It would just shock me if he flounders. I just don't see it. I mean, this guy's been playing playoff hockey for 3 months. I mean, the pressure's been on here. These were all, mostly must-win games that that they had to win here down the stretch, and he passed with flying colors. So I'm doing a huge story on him for Thursday. Haven't written it yet. So
we'll do that after a couple more vodka
I'll do that, probably I do my normal. I even told him, like, just to let you know, this is what I told him today, because I've talked to everybody. I talked to his parents, I've talked to his sister, I talked to his goalie coach, I said, let me just, so he asked me kind of how it's coming. And I said, what do you mean how it's coming? I haven't started. How's it coming?
Like, you're waiting for a Starbucks endorsement to start that story.
This is how I work. It doesn't matter how long I know a story has to be in. I need a deadline. And tomorrow I know that story's got to be done, and preferably before practice, because I got to pack and go to St. Louis after practice. So I will wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'll bang out this story. And so I told him, so keep your phone on silent, because usually the way that I work is that, every time I have like a fact check question, I'll send you a text message. So I don't want to wake you and your wife up at like 4:30 in the morning. So just keep your phone off. So this is what I was lecturing the Wild goalie today about how the story will be written.
Pressure.
Yeah, exactly. This is just his initial integration into the pressure of dealing with Russo.
One more big picture question, then we're going to give away some stuff. And again, going forward, I will be giving away pints of Guinness to the first 50 people who show up for our podcasts. Also, please visit mneye.com if you have any LASIK or vision issues.
My brother just had LASIK.
Did he?
Yeah, I told him he should come to Minnesota and have it done.
Absolutely. You know a guy.
Seems to love it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Kara Irish Pubs.
We'll do this off air.
Okay, we'll do the giveaways off air. My last big picture question here. The question of what will define a successful season is a question that gets reshaped throughout the season.
Yeah.
Last summer, you would say, they got to win at least 2 rounds to have progress. Then, as of mid-January, making the playoffs became the entire goal. What now? Let's get in the heads of Suter and Parisi, 2 really responsible guys who are locked up here, who want to make this a success. What would they consider to be a successful season at this point?
I think winning and going, I think for them, Stanley Cup. But I think they're realists, too, and they know how hard this matchup's going to be. And, yes, they said it, in today's story, that their goal is to go, and the expectations are no longer just making the playoffs and losing out in the first round or even just winning a round. But this is the NHL, and I'm not trying to be, an apologist for this team or to already make excuses before the season starts.
Obviously not an apologist because you're picking to lose 4 games to nothing.
Yeah, no, I picked them in 7. I gave them that. I will say this is good. If they lose, they lose. That's just the way that this league is. The LA Kings are sitting at home today. The Boston Bruins are sitting at home today. The Dallas Stars have the Art Rose Trophy winner. They're sitting at home today. The Avalanche won the Central last year. They're sitting at home. That's just the way this league is. And so if all of a sudden they go out and lose to a team like St. Louis, that's just the fact of life. It doesn't mean that Mike Yeo should be fired. It doesn't mean they should tear up this organization. It means they unfortunately went into a series with a very, very tough opponent, and unfortunately one of them has to go home. That is a fact of life. One of these 2 teams will not be playing in the second round. It might be the Wild. But to me, would it be a disappointment? Yeah. Will the fans react emotionally? Absolutely. But I don't think that they should tear up the organization if they happen to lose to St. Louis.
Longtime hockey writer Larry Brooks wrote that the Kings locked their coach out of the locker room. You believe that?
I will say the LA, in the LA Times investigation of the story, they called me because I witnessed a couple odd things here after the game here, but I don't think that incident happened here. I don't think it'd be possible for it to happen here because the coach's office is in the locker room. Mm-hmm. But I can say Daryl Sutter was nowhere to be found after that game, which was odd. My guess is if it happened in Chicago on that trip. There are big garbage cans around. The coach's office is outside. That door could easily be locked. There's only one way into that locker room. I told Lisa that, and she's like, good thinking. It's been denied. I don't think Larry Brooks would throw that out there if he didn't. I would hope not. Don't think he'd throw it out there if he didn't know it for a fact. So something must have happened, but like I said, it's been denied.
One more question for you here on SouhanUnfiltered.com. You can find the podcast at SouhanUnfiltered.com. I've done a lot of baseball podcasts recently. Going to mix in Friday night at 6 o'clock at O'Gara's. Jerry Zagoda, our colleague, who both covers the Timberwolves and cover the North Stars. We're going to talk old school hockey. We're going to talk hockey playoffs. We're going to talk future of the Timberwolves. Friday, 6 o'clock at O'Gara's. Come by, and we'll figure out some kind of a prize package for you if you can show up.
That was nice of Kevin Garnett to throw out the first pitch at the Twins game yesterday. He can't show up to Target Center ever, so
I think they should have had Tyus Jones throw a bounce pitch to Kevin Garnett. I think that would have been the right way to do it. You can also find the podcast via iTunes. Subscribe for free, and they will kick it to your inbox. You may also subscribe, or let's just listen to iHeartRadio. Again, going forward, I will be buying you a pint if you show up at Cara Irish Pubs for one of our podcasts. First 50 to come will get a pint. We appreciate all the people.
You must have struck it rich in Vegas, so you're doing this whole Guinness thing, huh?
I know Joe Guinness. It's a personal relationship thing.
Okay.
Let me ask you, last question of the podcast. Always great having you on, Michael. What do you think the mentality of the Minnesota Wild fan is? Because Minnesota fans are paranoid, question. But really,
Ben's nuts. I can tell you that. I mean, the guy has come to like 5 podcasts.
That defines nuts. But seriously, the Minnesota sports have been so depressed for so long now. This is the one team that has a chance at something. But the Minnesota mentality often is paranoia rather than joy. So you tell me what you think the fan mentality
I just even remember when they were trying to win at the end of the season, and all of a sudden, like, everybody was waiting for the shoe to drop, and then they show up, and Mikko Koivu's got a scratch cornea and scratch right before the game. And everyone's like, here it comes, the meltdown of the century. I mean, look, it's Minnesota, man. Did you see the Washington Post package today? Of all the 4-sport towns in the last decade, the Minnesota is the worst, and in every category. Look. By the way, I moved here 10 years ago, so it could have been me.
Here's a death, Russo.
That is the other common denominator, is that Sid's been here the entire time. I think it's the negative journalism in this town, or the gotcha journalists from all the TV people and the sports.
Yeah, because the TV people in this town are really tough.
So,
I've never seen a market where the TV people are so willing to give back massages during the interviews.
I think the mentality is.
And since you're friends with all of those people, you're not going to comment on that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the mentality is paranoia. I mean, the fans here. That's why it would be just so awesome to deliver this team, this town, a championship.
It would be.
Honestly, Jim, I don't even know you who can write anybody at our paper under the table. I don't even know if you know how to begin a story like that.
I'd like to try
because you're so accustomed to writing the postmortem.
The funny thing is, you mentioned that when I started writing, I covered.
Like, nobody writes a postmortem better than Jim Souhan, right? I mean,
I've had practice. But really, my favorite experiences here were covering the '98 Vikings, they were just a blast. Mm-hmm. The 2009 Vikings, covering Favre with that group, it was a blast. The 2001 to 2010 Twins, especially 2001 to 2006, when you had so many great personalities, it was a blast. So when I started writing the column, 2004, 2005, you had the Wolves coming off the Western Conference Finals. You had the Twins in the playoffs every year. The Wolves in the playoffs every year. Wild were, interesting. They had a chance at least. They had Gabrick, they had Lemaire, so they had a chance. And the Vikings are, for as much grief as people in this town give them, they have been remarkably competitive for a long time. So when I started doing the column, I was thinking playoffs all the time. It's going to be a blast. And then we got to about 2010, and it has been a ghost town. So I would like nothing better than for the Wild to take this and run with it and be the story of the decade.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, I just think it's a shame they couldn't figure out a way to get Nashville. It's like, I just think they beat Nashville. They're pretty much earmarked into the second round and maybe the third, and that's why it was surprising to me that they sat Koivu and Spurgeon, not Spurgeon so much, but Koivu and Suter against the Blues the other night. Again, if they just won one or two of those home games on the last homestand rather than kind of, falling on their face, maybe they'd be playing. Maybe I'd be in Nashville tomorrow for Game 1. Instead we're going to St. Louis.
Yeah, Nashville's a better town.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
A little bit. Tad better town.
That's Michael Russo. I'm Jim Souhan. Next podcast is going to be Thursday afternoon at the Liffey. I will be live at the Liffey giving away Guinnesses Michael Russo will be in St. Louis. G'day. Michael Russo will be in St. Louis. He's going to Skype in. We're going to do a hockey preview show on Thursday night. Then my next one after that, Friday, 6 o'clock at O'Gara's with Jerry Zagoda. Again, old-time hockey, new school basketball. Next week, I'm going to do a Minnesota United show. Russo and I are going to do a show. Maybe Russo and I are probably going to do 2 shows because there's so much hockey going on right now. We appreciate you listening. Please patronize Minnesota Eye Consultants, MNEYE.com. Guinness, the local, Kieran's, the Liffey, O'Gara's. Yes, I have a drinking problem, but I enjoy it. And again, we're going to be giving away a lot of Guinnesses going forward. Thank you all for showing up here and asking such good questions today. We are going to give away some stuff now. Again, thanks, Michael. Any final words?
Now, what time is the podcast on Thursday?
We haven't determined that yet. We're thinking, 3?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Pick a time. But follow us on Twitter, and we'll give you the exact time.
All right, cool.
Thanks, everyone, and let's give away some free stuff now. Thanks for listening, everybody.